Welcome to NTD News Today.
Here are our top stories.
Visa bans for some Israelis. The U.S. says some Israeli citizens won't be allowed to come. Find out who's affected and why.
Former President Trump's lawyers appearing in court for the Georgia election case for the first time. They begin their defense of Trump.
Takeaways from last night's debate between Governors Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis. We'll go over what they sparred about in case you missed it.
Ukraine is grappling with a new enemy, war fatigue, and it's putting pressure on not only politicians but families across the country. Some are making their voices heard.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
Welcome to NTD News Today. We begin with a new development in the Middle East conflict.
The U.S. now implementing visa bans for some Israelis. The ban will apply to Israeli settlers who engage in violence in the West Bank. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken told Israel's prime minister and his war cabinet about the visa ban.
A spokesperson for Israel's government said he had no comment on the matter, adding that Israel firmly condemns any violence by Israelis in the West Bank.
The visa ban will affect an undisclosed number of individuals. It's set to take effect in the next few weeks.
Lawmakers in the House want to block Iran from accessing $6 billion. The U.S. recently transferred the money in a prisoner swap. The frozen Iranian assets were transferred from banks in South Korea to Qatar.
On Thursday, the House passed the bipartisan No Funds for Iranian Terrorism Act. It would impose new sanctions on the funds. That's to prevent the transfer of any money to Iran.
However, the bill is unlikely to be supported by the Democratic majority in the Senate.
Days after the October 7th attack by Hamas, the U.S. and Qatar agreed that Iran would not have access to the money, with officials stopping short of a full refreezing of the funds. Iran backs and funds Hamas.
U.S. senators are set to take part in a classified briefing. That's to receive intel on Ukraine and Israel and on elements of the supplemental funding package that President Biden requested.
Biden asked Congress last month to approve over $100 billion in national security funding. That's to fund Israel, Ukraine, the southern border, and more.
However, the funding has not been approved, raising concerns that funds for Ukraine in particular might never pass, especially after the GOP-led House passed a bill including assistance for Israel, but not for Ukraine.
The classified briefing will take place next Tuesday. The briefers will include Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, and others. Regarding Trump's other legal cases, all eyes are on a Georgia courtroom today where Trump's attorneys are set to defend him in the election case there.
Trump's legal team is set to appear in court for the first time in the Georgia case. Trump himself will not be in court.
His legal team will seek to have the charges thrown out on First Amendment grounds. Trump's lawyers say his comments about voter fraud were political speech at their core.
Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee previously ruled against First Amendment challenges by other co-defendants.
Fulton County prosecutors want the trial for Trump to begin by August 2024. It will be up to the judge to decide. And for analysis of the latest on Trump's legal woes, we speak to attorney A. Scott Bolden, former New York Assistant District Attorney. He's also served as the chair of the D.C. Democratic Party. Hey, Scott Bolden, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with Trump's Georgia election interference case. His attorneys and some of his co-defendants are expected to argue for dismissal of the case or specific counts today. What's their legal basis for this?
Well, they're arguing under the First Amendment that Trump and his co-defendants who spread lies about the campaign is political speech and protected under the First Amendment. Now, the sitting judge in this case has rejected that already, but at the same time, they're going to try again. I don't think they're making these arguments for the sitting judge. They're making them for the appellate courts in Georgia, which they will immediately appeal, or at least try to immediately appeal. But First Amendment protections only go to speech. It doesn't go to bad acts. And here you had speech, and then you had bad acts on the part of Trump, at least according to the allegations. And so look for the judge to dismiss that motion to dismiss, or to reject that motion to dismiss and to move the case forward.
How is the case likely to play out from there?
Well, they got several co-defendants. 4 co-defendants have pled. I think there may be 10 to 15 other co-defendants, some who have filed similar motions under the First Amendment, but that dog won't hunt, as I said. They're doing this to get to the Court of Appeals or even the Supreme Court. After these motions have been decided either today or perhaps the next week or two, then there's going to be the whole issue of discovery. Trump's defense lawyers have asked for discovery that had been produced by Jack Smith in the federal case. That'll be interesting because the feds do share information, but co-defendants or co-defense counsel share information too. We'll have to see how the court looks at that motion.
And now moving on to the reinstatement of the gag order against Trump in the New York civil fraud trial. Talk about the constitutionality of this.
Well, a gag order is probably one of the toughest things for a court to do, and they take great concern in issuing a gag order because if you've got speech that is hate speech or speech that will threaten others, or more importantly, threaten the administration of justice. And in this case, the judge found in the New York State case that Trump's attacks on his law clerk, his spreading of lies about her and Senator Schumer, threatened the administration of justice and were forms of intimidation. In fact, he's been charged with not only violating that gag order a couple of times, I think he's got like $15,000 worth of fines, but then when appealed to the Court of Appeals, the Court of Appeals reinstated it. It's interesting, it was only a 2-page order, so the court didn't explain its decision-making, but you can read from that, at least you can extrapolate from that they simply agreed with the findings by the state court judge, and he can no longer attack administrative officials. It was a very restrictive order, but an important one.
Now, Scott, also in this case, Trump has been accused of defrauding banks like Deutsche Bank, but witnesses from Deutsche Bank said Trump's valuation of his properties did not affect loans. How could this impact the case going forward?
Well, you remember the judges found that Donald Trump and his co-defendants, his sons, have defrauded the bank already. And so now this is the damages phase. Despite the testimony of the bankers, that is really irrelevant as to whether the decision to give him the loans meant that they were defrauded. The banks gave him the loans. These are performing loans. Very often defendants will argue, but the loan is performing despite the fact that I've defrauded you, I lied to you about how to get the loan. That dog won't hunt in federal court or state court, especially in like mortgage fraud cases. And so the fact that that testimony, it's not going to have a lot of impact on the judge's ultimate finding on whether he's going to find a liability of $250 million. Interesting, but not dispositive of what the court's going to find. Okay,
and so, just in closing, Trump has been indicted 4 times since leaving office, and he faces 91 criminal counts. How is this legal burden affecting him politically?
Well, for the primaries, he's up by 30, 40, 50 points. His fundraising mechanism, every time he appears in court or these cases are pending, he goes up in the polls and his fundraising stays above the others. That being said, it's like a sugar high because Judgment Day is coming, if you will. And so right now, he's going to probably get the GOP nomination, but can he win the general? Most of us think that he can't win the general while facing 91 felony charges. But in this case, Trump's campaign are his criminal cases, and his criminal cases are his campaign. They're interlocking, at least how he's put them together, but ultimately, the criminal justice system has no politics in it and can care less about politics. These cases are going to be tried, at least one federal case is going to be tried starting in March or May, and he's going to be sitting in court, and the public's going to see the process at work.
All right. A. Scott Bolden, thank you so much.
Thank you.
GOP presidential candidates are set to face off in the 4th debate next Wednesday, December 6th. It will take place at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, starting at 7 p.m. local time. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley have qualified to be on stage.
Tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy is on the verge of making the cut. Chris Christie is struggling to meet polling requirements, which have a Monday deadline. Former President Trump will not be there. He's attending a MAGA fundraiser in Florida instead. Michigan Democrats are working to overhaul election laws in the state. Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed the election bills package into law Thursday. 16-year-olds will be allowed to register to vote before they can legally vote at 18.
Formerly imprisoned citizens will be automatically registered to vote upon their release. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson praised the legislation, saying it's a great step into the 2024 election cycle.
The legislation also looks to further protect election officials from intimidation. An individual who intimidates an election official could be charged with a misdemeanor.
The changes precede a 2024 presidential election that could again hinge on Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, 3 states that were critical to President Biden's 2020 win. And a judge has rejected Kari Lake's request to examine signed ballot envelopes from 1.3 million early voters. The ruling gives the former Arizona gubernatorial candidate another loss in her 3rd trial.
The judge argued their release would undermine the ballot verification process in future elections. State law mandates ballot envelope signatures remain confidential.
Lake's attorney argued that signatures are already out in the open and in the stream of commerce. Lake previously lost 2 trials that challenged her loss to Democrat Katie Hobbs by more than 17,000 votes.
The Arizona Republican announced the run for Senate in October.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and California Governor Gavin Newsom had their Fox News debate last night.
The Great Red versus Blue State debate focused on the governor's policies and how they handled issues like the pandemic, lockdowns, abortion, crime, and taxes. Newsom fired back at DeSantis after being called a lockdown governor, saying Florida quarantines came into effect before California's.
DeSantis criticized the California governor for a recent bill he signed that allows minors to travel to the state for gender-changing procedures. The fiery 90-minute debate was a bit messy at times. Here's a snippet from last night's event.
Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see how almost the whole thing is covered, because that is what has happened in one of the previous greatest cities this country's ever had. Human feces is now a fact of life, except when a communist dictator comes to town. Then they cleaned up the streets. They lined the streets with Chinese flags. They didn't put American flags there. They cleaned everything up. So they're willing to do it for a communist dictator, but they're not willing to do it for their own people.
Representative George Santos was just expelled from Congress, with over 100 Republicans joining Democrats to oust him.
Santos is the 6th lawmaker to ever be expelled. He's accused of fundraising fraud and other crimes, but he hasn't yet been convicted in court. The New York governor will have to organize a special election to replace him. For a deep dive into last night's debate, I spoke with Steve Deese, host of The Steve Deese Show on Blaze TV. Steve Deese, thank you for joining us. This was a unique debate between a prominent GOP candidate and a prominent Democrat who hasn't declared he's running. Why do you think the 2 debaters agreed to participate?
I think they each have their own agendas. I think for Gavin Newsom, it's clear he's been on a campaign for the last few months to introduce himself as a potential replacement for Joe Biden. And to that end, last night did not go well for him. I would imagine the Biden team was ecstatic to see Junior get beat down like that. And for DeSantis, it was an opportunity for him to get on a national stage away from other candidates' race. Really, it's been a 2-person race the entire time. And so this was a chance for him to show what he can do one-on-one, and I think he really showed out.
And why do you say it did not go well for Newsom?
I really thought both candidates were going to do well. I told my own audience on The Blaze that both these guys are skilled politicians. They don't have to worry about alienating any of the other side's voters, so they could really bring it full bore with what they represent on their end. And I think from the beginning, DeSantis kind of came out of the opening bell and grabbed the thing by the throat before Newsom had a solid footing. Sean Hannity asked a lot of questions with data that kind of cornered Newsom into having to give specifics. And you see that a lot of times in our media culture, Democrats do not have to be confronted with reality on this level. And so I think between that reality and the amount of receipts that DeSantis brought, I think poop map will forever be a footnote in American political debating lexicon. I think that Newsom got destroyed, and that frankly surprised me. I thought he would do better.
And DeSantis is looking to boost his campaign as the Iowa caucuses approach. Do you think he got the boost he was looking for?
We had a really dead caucus process. I've been involved in every caucus cycle since 1996. This was the most dead I've ever seen until Governor Reynolds endorsed a few weeks ago, and that kind of turned the lights on in the building. I got the prominent endorsement of Bob Vander Plaats, who's kind of the top political organizer in the state. He got that last week. And then this performance last night, I don't think there's any question right now that he has real momentum in Iowa.
And Steve, you're an outspoken conservative, but how do you think Democrats would have viewed Newsom's performance last night?
I think it depends. I think if you are a Biden loyalist, you are ecstatic with Newsom's performance last night. The Crown Prince showed he is not ready yet to assume the throne. Okay, and if you're a Biden ally, you're telling all your media people, hey, Junior got out there and got his can kicked by the guy down by 50 points in the polls. He's not ready for the big leagues. And I think if you are someone that recognizes you can't run Biden again on the left, you're really down today because your bench is thin. And this was the number one guy in the on-deck circle, and he flailed last night. In fact, ironically, some of his most effective attacks were when he was quoting Trump. Okay, so I think that was not a good night for Gavin Newsom 24 or Gavin Newsom 28.
Now, there were a lot of flashpoints last night between this Democrat and Republican governors, but what do you think was the biggest?
I thought that when DeSantis brought out the poop map, and apologies, that's what it was literally called, and then tied it to the fact that Newsom admitted last week that they did clean up the streets because China was in town, and they won't do that for you, but they'll do it for China. That was among the biggest knockout blows, throat punches I've ever seen a Democrat take flush to the face on a stage from a Republican. I think there were other big moments, but that to me, that was Rocky knocking out Ivan Drago right there, I thought.
All right, and in closing here, Steve, if Governor Newsom does decide to run for president, would he pose a threat to the Republican frontrunner?
I think he would, just because the country's so polarized, and you're going to get, by being a Democratic nominee, 47 to 48% of the popular vote just by being on the ballot. But I don't think he's as much of a threat as he was 24 hours ago. Because, sometimes, and I come from a sports background, you have to look at the caliber of competition when you're scouting the opponent. And when you're going up against friendly media all the time, California fawning media all the time, yeah, your numbers look great, but you're not really facing competition on the field that can punch back. Last night, Gavin Newsom faced that politically, really for the first time, and you saw him get knocked out.
Okay, Steve Deese, host of the Steve Deese Show. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Coming up, a House bill bars the government from housing illegal immigrants on federal lands. Officials weigh in on the new legislation.
And Dr. Anthony Fauci agrees to testify at a House COVID origins hearing. What to look forward to, more in just a moment, here on NTD News Today.
Anyone who's ever sold a home can tell you it is really hard. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we've helped thousands of people sell faster and for the best price.
We all know that words have power. They set things in motion
and make us happy or sad.
But there's one word that stands out because when people say it, lives are changed.
It's not a big word.
It's itsy bitsy.
It's only 3 little letters.
But when you say it,
the life of a kid like me can be changed.
So, what is this special word?
It may surprise you.
It's yes.
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 Yes to becoming a monthly supporter of Shriners Hospitals for Children.
That's right. Your monthly support allows the doctors and nurses at Shriners Hospitals for Children to give the most amazing care anywhere and change the lives of kids like me.
And me.
And me.
Because people like you have said yes. Now I can play football.
And I can play catch.
And I can walk.
So what do you say? Will you say yes right now?
It's so easy.
All you have to do is pick up the phone or go to loveshriners.org right now and say yes. When you say yes to giving just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a reminder of all the kids you're helping every day. My life is filled with possibility because of the monthly support of people just like you who called the number on your screen and said yes.
Yes.
Yes!
Yes.
Your yes is making a difference in my life and the lives of so many other kids like me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving.
Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, call again or go to loveshriners.org to say yes right away.
Freedom is not free, and neither is the truth. In order to bring you the facts, our reporters are out there on the front lines getting the true story. Some of them served 10 years of prison in China. We've been censored on social media. Our Hong Kong printing offices were set on fire, and we've been repeatedly attacked by the Chinese Communist Party. But no matter what, we believe that you deserve the truth, and so we'll continue to bring the truth to light. Head on over to getepic.com and try honest journalism that is based in truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
We're all just trying to keep things running for those who rely on us. Ready! That's why we don't have time to be sick with the flu. And especially this year, no one has time to get sick. Get a flu shot for yourself and those around you too.
The House passed a bill yesterday barring the use of taxpayer money to pay for illegal immigrant housing on federal lands.
That would include land belonging to the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and other government agencies. The bill would also revoke the Biden administration's lease with New York City to house illegal immigrants at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn.
The bill passed mostly along party lines in a vote of 224 to 203, with all Republicans and 6 Democrats voting for it. The Biden administration announced that it strongly opposes the bill.
Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis from New York introduced the bill. She says turning federal parks into camps for unvetted migrants is unfair to surrounding communities and taxpayers who are forced to foot the bill. The federal government can go ahead and remove razor wire fencing at the southern border in Texas. That's the decision a district judge made yesterday.
Texas initially put up the razor wire fencing. The federal government, however, wants to remove it.
Texas took the issue to court, wanting to keep the fencing.
The judge in the case criticized the Biden administration's, quote, utter failure to secure the border, but concluded that Texas can't prevent the federal government from removing the fencing.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says his office is appealing the decision.
A migrants caravan is currently on its way to the U.S. The estimated size of the group is about 2,800 migrants, with 700 being children. They come from different nationalities.
The caravan has arrived in the state of Veracruz in southeast Mexico. Yesterday, they were seen resting before resuming their trip to the U.S.
COVID vaccine controversy. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is suing drug maker Pfizer. He accuses the company of misrepresenting the efficacy of its COVID-19 vaccine. Paxton says it was misleading for Pfizer to claim its vaccine was 95% effective based on relative risk reduction. The Attorney General says the claim came from only 2 months of clinical trial data. He says the absolute risk reduction showed the vaccine was just 0.85% effective. The Attorney General also says the pandemic worsened after people started taking the vaccine. Paxton says Pfizer censored people who threatened to spread what he calls the truth to help the vaccine be adopted. The lawsuit seeks to stop Pfizer from making alleged false claims and silencing, quote, truthful speech about its vaccine. Pfizer responded, saying the information it gave about the vaccine was accurate and science-based.
Dr. Anthony Fauci is set to appear before the House Select Committee investigating the pandemic. Fauci, who was often criticized the face of America's public health response during COVID-19, will participate in a 7-hour interview January 8th and 9th. A public hearing will be set at a later date. Republicans have long sought Fauci's testimony over his handling of the pandemic. The committee is investigating the origins of COVID-19, the lockdown and mask mandates, scientific censorship, and more. Last year, Fauci stepped down as President Biden's top medical advisor and the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
More rules governing the internet are in the works, but Republicans are expressing concerns.
In a recent hearing, FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel faced scrutiny about the plan. Here's Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers.
The Biden FCC under Chairwoman Rosenworcel is once again attempting to regulate broadband as a public utility under Title II of the Communications Act of 1934.
The FCC has authority over communications between states and internationally. It wants more authority over broadband providers so it can establish, quote, basic rules for internet service.
This proposal to restore net neutrality rules is raising concerns among Republican lawmakers. Representative Rodgers argued that it might discourage American tech innovation.
The Washington Republican also said it could have consequences for ordinary business. She also emphasized that Congress, not the FCC, has the authority to make changes to laws, including laws governing the internet. How did foreign hackers breach a water authority near Pittsburgh? 3 U.S. lawmakers from Pennsylvania have asked the Justice Department to investigate. They say other water and sewage treatment utilities could be vulnerable. Senators John Fetterman, Bob Casey, and Representative Chris Deluzio called the attack unacceptable. The lawmakers added that Americans must know their drinking water and other basic infrastructure is safe.
The compromised system was made in Israel. A photo from the Municipal Water Authority suggests the hacktivists deliberately targeted that facility.
A device screen shows a message from the hackers that reads, "Every equipment made in Israel is Cyber Avenger's legal target."
The group claimed in October 30th social media post to have hacked 10 water treatment stations in Israel.
Is the Pentagon withholding information about UFOs? A bipartisan group of lawmakers is accusing them of just that.
At a press conference yesterday, the 6 House members said they have been stymied by the defense and intelligence communities when they asked questions about UFOs.
I believe our country, at least since 1947, has had a long history of covering this issue up. And this year we were finally able to hold a legitimate hearing in July with credible witnesses who testified under oath to what they'd seen and experienced. It all comes down to one word, and that word is transparency. I've been briefed on things I can't talk about in public because it's considered classified. But why are we classifying so much about this, especially if the information doesn't jeopardize national security and we have departments telling us that they do not exist?
It is unacceptable that any mid-level unelected bureaucrat staffers can tell members of Congress that we are not allowed to access information about UAPs. Let me be clear that we are the representatives of the elected, of people that sent us here to do the right thing. Unelected bureaucrats do not get to say what we can and cannot see.
This comes months after a military veteran testified that he believed the government recovered non-human material from alleged UFO crash sites.
But Representative Anna Paulina Luna says there's an orchestrated attempt to block lawmakers from accessing more information from that officer.
She and the other lawmakers want to require the Pentagon to declassify all UFO documents that don't compromise national security.
A similar proposal is currently making its way through the Senate.
Florida police may start releasing victims' names. At least the state Supreme Court ruled yesterday that they are allowed to. Florida law enforcement began refusing to publicly release victims' names after voters passed a constitutional amendment.
Now the court ruled that the name doesn't have to be withheld from the public. Instead, the amendment protects information that could be used to locate and harass the victims.
It also allows crime victims or their families to request their names be withheld from public documents. The ruling could have wider implications for news agencies and others seeking details about a crime.
Law enforcement wouldn't have to voluntarily provide the information, but they would have to provide victims' names if a request is made under the state's public records law. Senator Rand Paul got to put his medical training to work yesterday during a Republican party lunch. Paul, who is a doctor, performed the Heimlich maneuver on Senator Joni Ernst. The senator from Iowa was hosting the party's weekly lunch when she started choking during the meal, which consisted of pork chops and steaks. After Ernst was helped, Paul talked to the other senators there about noticing choking signs. Later, Ernst was able to joke about the scary incident. She said on social media, quote, "Can't help but choke on the woke policies Dems are forcing down our throats." Now for some business headlines. U.S. chipmaker Broadcom is set to lay off about 1,300 employees in California who used to work for cloud computing firm VMware. That's according to a Bloomberg report. The move follows Broadcom's November takeover of VMware after receiving regulatory approval from China. Beijing had slowed down antitrust reviews of other proposed deals by U.S. companies. The recent approval was seen as signaling a thaw in U.S.-China relations. Insider also reported Broadcom will review strategic options for 2 business units of VMware. Another company downsizing, VF Corp, the owner of Vans. The company has announced layoffs of around 500 employees as part of a global restructuring plan. The company has been facing challenges in the tough U.S. retail market, with customers cutting back on non-essential spending. Sales of the Vans brand have been declining, and the new CEO doesn't expect a turnaround this year. Shares of VF have dropped 40% this year.
Coming up, the war in Ukraine is entering a new phase. That's as Russia's favorite season is coming, winter. Find out what the Kremlin says about possible peace talks at this stage.
And a spectacular light show given by Mother Nature herself. A volcano in Italy put on a spectacle for locals this morning, and you can see it too, right here after the break.
To a child, this is what conflict looks like. Children in Ukraine are caught in the crossfire of war, forced to flee their homes.
A steady stream of refugees has been coming across all day. It's bitterly cold.
Lacking clean water and sanitation, exposed to injury, hunger.
Exhausted and shell-shocked from what they've been through.
Every dollar you give can help bring a meal, a blanket, or simply hope to a child living in conflict. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month. That's just 33 cents a day. We cannot forget the children in places like Syria, born in refugee camps, playing in refugee camps, thinking of the camps as home. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month. Your gift can help children like Ara in Afghanistan, where nearly 20 years of conflict have forced the people into extreme poverty. Weakened and unable to hold herself up, Ara was brought to a Save the Children center where she was diagnosed and treated for severe malnutrition. Every dollar helps. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month, just 33 cents a day. And thanks to special government grants that are available now, every dollar you give can multiply up to 10 times the impact. And when you use your credit card, you'll receive this special Save the Children tote bag to show you won't forget the children who are living their lives in conflict. Every war is a war against children. Please, give now.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-984-7221. That's 1-800-984-7221 or go to getbullseyepro.com.
I'm Steve Lance in Washington, D.C., and we are NTD News.
Now heading to Europe, we have some short headlines from Germany, Spain, and other countries. The war between Russia and Ukraine is entering a new stage. That's according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
Winter is expected to complicate fighting as it has often helped Russia win wars in the past. This comes after a summer counteroffensive that failed to produce the desired results.
Despite setbacks, however, Zelenskyy now says Ukraine will keep fighting.
We have a new phase of the war, and that's a fact. War is complex, and winter as a whole is a new phase of war. I'd say that a winter war takes place not only on the front line, but inside cities too, because of the large number of drones used by the enemy, and because of the large number of missiles, including ballistic, etc. And that's why a winter war is difficult.
As winter intensifies, Russia says it is advancing on all Ukrainian fronts, indicating that support by the West has not necessarily hurt Russia.
Russia's foreign minister today alleged the West's support only led to an increase in human losses for Ukraine. He also says Ukraine is not ready for talks to end the war.
We don't see any signals from Kyiv nor from their masters that they are ready to move to a political process. We don't see it. Moreover, a year and a half ago, Zelenskyy signed a decree prohibiting talks with Putin's government. It's an apparent case. He's not going to cancel it.
Spain, 3 people are injured after a helicopter crashed on a highway in Madrid today.
2 people were in the helicopter. 1 was able to exit on foot. Firefighters had to rescue the other from the wreckage.
The helicopter also hit a car, which caused the 3rd injury.
The accident was reportedly caused by heavy wind. This might have destabilized the aircraft.
The bird flu detected in Germany. Over 11,000 turkeys have been culled. The highly pathogenic bird flu broke out on a farm in East Germany.
This is believed to be the first case of bird flu in Germany this year. The disease usually strikes in Europe during autumn and winter. It has recently been detected on farms in France, the Netherlands, Italy, and other countries.
A volcano in Italy put on a spectacular show for locals this morning. Mount Etna lit up the sky, shooting bright red lava. This exactly as the sun was rising over Sicily.
The volcano frequently erupts, but its outbursts usually don't cause significant damage. Mount Etna is believed to have the longest documented history of eruptions among all volcanoes. Records date back to as early as 400 BC.
Nearby Catania Airport remained open today despite the ash from the volcano. Over 600 days of full-scale war, and Ukraine is straining to bolster its army as war fatigue sets in.
As the war drags on, there's been little reprieve for some of those already in service, and their families are calling for a solution. Here's more.
When Antonina Danilovich's husband, Alexander, enlisted in the Ukrainian army in March 2022, he lined up at the draft office alongside swathes of patriotic countrymen. She says those crowds are now non-existent. As the war drags towards the 2-year mark, Ukraine seems to be struggling to bolster its army, meaning little reprieve for some of those already in service. Danilovich and 25,000 others signed a petition to President Volodymyr Zelenskyy this autumn. They say military service cannot remain open-ended and insist troops be given a clear timeline for when they'll be discharged. The campaign has included 2 small protests in Kiev's main square in recent weeks, despite martial law prohibiting public demonstrations since the start of the war.
We have gathered here today to make our government acknowledge that our husbands joined service at the very start of the war, just when the full-scale invasion began. We demand that the length of time the mobilized men must serve is clearly defined. We hope we will be heard, and our husbands too. It is very tough for them. They are exhausted. They do not need rotation. We are here to demand they are given proper rest.
Danilovich's husband has only had about 25 days of home leave since he enlisted. With no end to his tour in sight, she's finding it hard to cope. She says Alexander, formerly a university lecturer, now a platoon commander, had to watch his son get married this year on video call from the ruined city of Bakhmut. Her 14-year-old daughter misses her dad.
We were sitting together, all the wives, and asking ourselves, how much longer? How much more time will pass before the length of our husbands' sons' service is defined? It is not clear. You need to understand, while the boys are fighting, children grow up without fathers. We do not want the war to just end. We want Ukraine to win, but not with the hands of the same people and only those people. I understand they need to be replaced. They also need to rest. But somehow, other people do not understand it.
Many families, like Danilovich's, face the prospect of a longer and costlier conflict than they'd hoped for, one that some now acknowledge they're not guaranteed to win. Ukraine's vaunted summer counteroffensive has so far failed to deliver a decisive breakthrough, and both Ukraine and Russia are dug in along largely static front lines. Danilovich's campaign points to difficult choices war planners face as they try to maintain the flow of recruits to defeat a much larger army amid steady losses, while retaining a big enough workforce to sustain the shattered economy. The army recruitment process largely takes place out of the public eye. Only Ukrainian men aged between 27 and 60 can be mobilized by draft officers. But these officers do stop men in the streets, at the metro or at checkpoints and hand out call-up papers to them, instructing them to report to recruitment centres. Over the last year, social media videos occasionally surface showing officers dragging away or threatening men they want to mobilise. Some sociologists say a gloomier mood has set in nationwide. They point to surveys showing declining trust in the government, which had surged in the first months of the war when Ukrainian forces repelled Russian advances. Danilovich says it's hard watching the war unfold from the home front. Women have indeed become stronger, but at what cost, she says. Everyone pays a different price.
A Russian man has pleaded guilty to federal charges in the U.S. He was accused of involvement in a cyber criminal organization.
The group used a computer banking Trojan and ransomware called TrickBot. The man admitted to conspiracy to commit computer fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, and bank fraud. He faces a maximum of 35 years in prison.
Russian officials were allowed to access to the man on the same day that Russia allowed the U.S. ambassador to visit a journalist detained in Moscow, suggesting a diplomatic motivation.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those barbecues you plan in detail for your family? Or your daughter's first costume party? It was out of this world. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
When I was growing up, my mom was extremely tidy. We were trained to put things back where we got them from. One day, when I walked into my mom's house, I felt like I walked to someone else's house. There was stuff everywhere. And just growing up the way I grew up and to see this transition was very alarming.
When Sean talked to me, it was a wake-up call, and that's when I went to the doctor.
Stay tuned to get this free 5-piece Ultra Nonstick Bakeware set from Gotham Steel. Are you tired of pans that burn and lids that don't fit? Worse yet, they're a nightmare to clean. You need a new set, but prices are so high it's obscene. Well, now there's a brand new professional cookware set that's ultra durable and non-stick. These pans are super slick, and they can be yours for our lowest price ever. Introducing Gotham Steel, chef-tested cookware designed to make family meals with no sticking and easy cleanup every time. Gotham Steel is made with cast aluminum and coated with Cerama, a fusion of ultra-durable titanium and super slick ceramic. This cookware comes with vented glass lids and is oven rated up to 500 degrees. So bake meals in the oven that come out perfect every time. Even use metal utensils with no scratching. Plus, the entire set is PFOA free and dishwasher safe. Other professional cookware sets can cost up to $400, but we have a factory direct deal for you. You can get the Gotham Steel 12-piece set not for $400 or even $300, but for just 5 easy payments of $49.99. But wait, order right now and we'll drop one payment. That's just 4 easy payments of $49.99. This is nonstick cookware that we know you'll love. That's why we're guaranteeing it for a full 10 years. We'll even include our self-draining fry basket, stainless steel steamer insert, and steamer rack, a $50 value absolutely free. And there's even more. As a special gift, you'll get our 5-piece Gotham Steel bakeware set. The fast, easy, ultra nonstick way to bake your favorite desserts. No grease or oil needed. Together, they're a $110 value. Yours free. That's an incredible 20-piece cookware set. Plus free shipping on your entire order. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-278-6025 or go to gothamset.com. Again, that's 1-800-278-6025 or order online at gothamset.com.
Christmas inches closer with the beginning of December and the lighting of the national Christmas tree.
At the White House, the President and First Lady Jill Biden participated in the annual tradition last night.
There was a minor setback earlier this week when heavy winds knocked over the 40-foot Norway spruce on Tuesday, but the National Park Service had it back up that night.
The annual lighting is a tradition that goes all the way back to 1923, making this the 101st time the event has been held.
In President Biden's words last night, let's remember how blessed we are as Americans for the gift that is our nation. A similar tradition carries on in the UK. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak lit the Downing Street Christmas tree in London last night.
Before lighting the tree, Sunak took the opportunity to thank workers in the country's healthcare system, the police force, and the armed forces. Some of these staff won't be able to spend Christmas with their families.
And in the capital of Italy, the mayor of Rome inaugurated the Christmas lighting above a downtown luxury shopping street.
The lights will kickstart the Christmas season in one of Rome's most important shopping areas.
The local police marching band played the Italian anthem to accompany the lighting ceremony. Hundreds of tourists and families attended.
Rome's main Christmas tree will be lit on December 8th in Piazza del Popolo Square, where the traditional tree in St. Peter's Square will be switched on the day after.
In Germany, the romantic Christmas market at Marode Castle is back for its 15th year. Visitors can explore the castle park, admire the illuminated facade, and buy Christmas treats.
One of the highlights is visitors singing along with Christkind, a traditional Christmas gift bearer. The market aims to help people forget about stress and bring them Christmas cheer.
The castle has a rich history. It has undergone reconstruction multiple times after air raids and a major fire. And a fantastic display of nearly 1,000 gingerbread buildings. This Christmas season, a Guinness World Record holder pays tribute to the Big Apple with a remarkable creation. Take a look. And next up, even Santa has delivery deadlines. To ensure gifts are under the tree in time for Christmas, be mindful of when your packages need to be shipped out. The United States Postal Service recommends that holiday mail be sent out by December 16th for arrival by Christmas. But if you're doing priority, you have 4 extra days to get those packages to the post office. Meanwhile, FedEx recommends a shipping date no later than December 15th for a 5-day home delivery. And UPS recommends shipping packages out on December 19th using 3-day select for delivery by Saturday, December 23rd. And animals at the London Zoo also had a head start to Christmas, getting to open their advent calendars early this year. 2 Sumatran tiger cubs made a dash for their calendar along a cinnamon and nutmeg scented trail and toppled their towers of red boxes.
Squirrel monkeys, meanwhile, showed off their balancing skills as they fished their holiday treats out of festive pouches.
The meerkats had to do some work to get their favorite snacks, crickets, out of 25 drawers in a Christmas tree-shaped calendar.
London Zoo offers a range of Christmas events, including crafts, marshmallow toasting, and seasonal-themed animal talks. The special festive events run until January 7th.
And an underwater holiday celebration in Germany. At Sea Life in Munich, even sharks get treats for Christmas.
Visitors will witness a unique sight as divers dressed as St. Nicholas and his helpers feed bananas to fish.
The aquarium holds over 100,000 gallons of water and is about 16 feet deep, creating the perfect backdrop for this underwater extravaganza.
Sea Life is the world's largest aquarium chain with over 50 locations and more than 23 million visitors a year.
And over to Ireland. Trays of bright red poinsettia plants are ready for a blooming Christmas.
At this wholesale plant nursery in Dublin, 8 acres of the seasonal blooms have been growing for 6 months. These poinsettias are often brought to decorate homes at Christmas.
The nursery said they usually grow about 2 million plants a year, and they empty out in about 2 weeks.
The poinsettia's distinctive red leaves have made it a Christmas staple in its native Mexico and abroad. And if you have any news tips or feedback for the show, please feel free to email us at news.today@ntd.com.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shen-Yun.
Be right there. Wait. Use the shovel and bucket of water, remember? Drown, stir, drown, feel. Then make sure it's cool.
Where'd you learn that?
SmokeyBear.com. Brushed up on some tips before we left. Don't want to start a wildfire, right?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, no full bellies. All around the world, parents are struggling to feed their children. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. COVID, conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we're fed up. Fed up with the fact that hunger robs children of their childhood. Fed up with the lack of progress. Fed up with the injustice. Help us brighten the lives of children all over the world by visiting getfedupnow.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients. Prevent children from dropping out of school. Support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give before December 31st can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Childhood without food is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit getfedupnow.org today.
I'm Tiffany Meyer in New York City, and we are NTD News.
Welcome to NTD News Today.
Here are our top stories.
Over 130 hostages still remain in Gaza as the temporary truce between Israel and Hamas breaks down.
Republican George Santos kicked out of Congress in an expulsion vote. Find out who voted against him and why the vote is unprecedented.
A D.C. court says that Trump doesn't have presidential immunity from lawsuits over January 6th. What are the implications of the ruling?
Takeaways from last night's debate between Governors Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis. We'll go over what they sparred about in case you missed it.
Dr. Anthony Fauci agrees to testify before Congress on the origins of COVID-19 and the U.S. response. What to look forward to?
The bidding for a Babe Ruth rookie card could set a new record. NTD's Dave Martin will join us in the studio to discuss.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
The House voted to expel Congressman George Santos just an hour ago.
The New York Republican is facing 23 federal charges, including financial fraud and false statements.
But he's the first person to get expelled from Congress without a conviction. 105 Republicans joined most Democrats in voting against him, but the 4 top GOP leaders voted to keep him.
Expulsion is the most severe form of punishment for a lawmaker in the House, and Santos is just the 6th person ever to be expelled.
Momentum has grown since the House Ethics Committee released a long-awaited report in November. It concluded that Santos sought to fraudulently exploit his House candidacy for his own personal profit.
There will be a special election in New York to fill his seat.
On this vote, the yeas are 311, the nays are 114, with 2 recorded as present. 2/3 voting in the affirmative, the resolution is adopted, and a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Former President Donald Trump won't be immune from civil lawsuits filed over January 6th. That's the ruling by a 3-judge panel in Washington, D.C. Friday. In a landmark decision, the judges ruled that Trump can be held accountable in lawsuits filed by Capitol Police officers and Democrats in Congress. Legal observers say the decision sets a new precedent about the powers of the presidency.
The ruling means several civil cases against the former president related to the 2020 election can proceed. Regarding Trump's other legal cases, all eyes are on a Georgia courtroom today where Trump's attorneys are set to defend him in the election case there.
Trump's legal team is set to appear in court for the first time in the Georgia case. Trump himself will not be in court.
His legal team will seek to have the charges thrown out on First Amendment grounds. Trump's lawyers say his comments about voter fraud were political speech at their core.
Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee previously ruled against First Amendment challenges by other co-defendants.
Fulton County prosecutors want the trial for Trump to begin by August 2024. It will be up to the judge to decide.
And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and California Governor Gavin Newsom had their Fox News debate last night.
The great red versus blue state debate focused on the governor's policies and how they handled issues like the pandemic lockdowns, abortion, crime, and taxes. Newsom fired back at DeSantis after being called a lockdown governor, saying Florida quarantines came into effect before California's.
DeSantis criticized the California governor for a recent bill he signed that allows minors to travel to the state for gender-changing procedures. The fiery 90-minute debate was a bit messy at times. Here's a snippet from last night's event.
Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see how almost the whole thing is covered, because that is what has happened in one of the previous greatest cities this country's ever had. Human feces is now a fact of life, except when a communist dictator comes to town. Then they cleaned up the streets. They lined the streets with Chinese flags. They didn't put American flags there. They cleaned everything up. So they're willing to do it for a communist dictator, but they're not willing to do it for their own people.
GOP presidential candidates are set to face off in the fourth debate next Wednesday, December 6th. It will take place at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, starting at 7 p.m. local time. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley have qualified to be on stage.
Tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy is on the verge of making the cut. Chris Christie is struggling to meet polling requirements, which have a Monday deadline. Former President Trump will not be there. He's attending a MAGA fundraiser in Florida instead. Michigan Democrats are working to overhaul election laws in the state. Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed the election bills package into law Thursday. 16-year-olds will be allowed to register to vote before they can legally vote at 18.
Formerly imprisoned citizens will be automatically registered to vote upon their release. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson praised the legislation, saying it's a great step into the 2024 election cycle.
The legislation also looks to further protect election officials from intimidation. An individual who intimidates an election official could be charged with a misdemeanor.
The changes precede a 2024 presidential election that could again hinge on Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, 3 states that were critical to President Biden's 2020 win. And a judge has rejected Kari Lake's request to examine signed ballot envelopes from 1.3 million early voters. The ruling gives the former Arizona gubernatorial candidate another loss in her third trial.
The judge argued their release would undermine the ballot verification process in future elections. State law mandates ballot envelope signatures remain confidential.
Lake's attorney argued that signatures are already out in the open and in the stream of commerce. Lake previously lost 2 trials that challenged her loss to Democrat Katie Hobbs by more than 17,000 votes.
The Arizona Republican announced the run for Senate in October.
Fighting between Israel and Hamas resumed today following a week-long ceasefire.
Over 130 hostages still remain in Hamas's hands.
Israel said the ceasefire ended because Hamas decided not to release more women and children hostages as it had agreed. The terrorist group began launching rockets at Israel this morning, shortly before the end of the truce.
Hamas, on the other hand, says it doesn't have any more women and children to release. The Israeli government says Hamas still has 137 hostages, including 20 women and 2 minors. 3 hostages, including 2 men and a woman, were announced dead today.
And as fighting resumes, Israel is moving southward. The military asked residents in a southern Gaza city to evacuate. The Israeli Defense Forces also released a new interactive map showing evacuation zones in Gaza.
Qatar, which is one of the mediators, said talks are continuing for another ceasefire. The White House said the U.S. will continue efforts as well.
And earlier today, we spoke with Rabbi Yaakov Menken, who's managing director at the Coalition for Jewish Values, for his take. Rabbi Yaakov Menken, with the ceasefire ending, how do you perceive the shifting dynamics here in regard to the moral issues that are coming up, and what kind of ethical considerations emerge considering that the ceasefire has concluded?
Well, you see that Israel's enemies do not value life, and Israel ultimately values life above all. That is why Israel agreed to a ceasefire in the first place, because it was securing the release of hostages by agreeing to a temporary ceasefire. And you see what happened is that Hamas eventually broke the ceasefire. They were holding women and children. They were actually, not only were they holding them, they were torturing them, and they were tormenting their families and all of Israel at the same time. So of course it was in Israel's interests to try to secure the release of those hostages. But as anybody could have predicted, given past history, given that Hamas has broken every ceasefire that ever existed between Hamas and Israel, Hamas once again has broken that ceasefire, refusing to release the last of the women and children. Think about that for a minute. And also firing missiles once again at Israel's civilian population.
And so considering this history that you've just laid out, what kind of ethical considerations, what do you think of the potential for future negotiations of ceasefires?
Well, I think there's going to be a ceasefire. There is going to be a ceasefire as soon as Hamas is destroyed, as soon as Hamas is eradicated. The people calling for a permanent ceasefire out there chanting, blocking the Macy's parade, blocking the Manhattan Bridge. Each and every one of them, and let me say this as clearly as possible, each and every one is a moron or a barbarian, a murderous barbarian, because everybody knows that there's no such thing as a permanent ceasefire involving Hamas intact. It is Hamas who broke the ceasefire in 2007, who broke it in 2009, who broke it in 2011 and in 2014 and in 2021 and in 2013. Notice there was a gap in there between 2016 and 2020. That was probably because there was a president who everybody knew was going to tell Israel, do whatever you need to do. Biden thus far has been doing the same, but that may now reverse. But there's no question. Israel has to finish the job. Hamas must be utterly eradicated. All that has to happen for a permanent ceasefire is that Hamas surrenders the hostages, surrenders their arms, disarms, puts up the war criminals for arrest, and then all of a sudden there will be a permanent ceasefire.
And you mentioned the potential impact of U.S. presidents on these dynamics. And the international community in general tends to play a role in conflicts like these. How do you view the ethical responsibilities of the global community in responding to this renewed threat from Hamas and this renewed conflict?
The primary obligation of the world community is to treat Israel not like an anti-Semite treats Israel, but treats Israel like any other first world country faced by a terrorist threat. There is not a country in the world that responds to a terrorist threat by giving up, by doing a ceasefire. All of this nonsense stupidity about how Israel is really a country called Palestine, which is nothing more than a European colonialist name for the Jewish homeland. It's time for countries to treat Israel like a first world country trying to protect its citizens. When it is Israel being accused of war crimes like the international, especially like Europe, the Spanish right now, they were called for reprimand, and the ambassador was pulled for consultations because the prime minister of Spain as good as accused Israel of perhaps committing war crimes, trying to protect its civilians when it is Hamas using civilians as human shields, and that's why civilians are dying.
And so what constructive actions or interventions from the global community do you think could be considered?
They should be backing Israel, period. Full stop. There is not a question. This is a challenge between good and evil, between civilization and barbarians, between first world democracy and terrorism. Good grief. Just don't treat Israel uniquely, because that's what anti-Semites do. Spain has a good history with anti-Semitism. So does all of Europe. It's a blood-soaked, Jewish blood-soaked continent. Leave Israel alone, help them and support them in the effort. That is, of course, what the Arab world should be doing if they actually value Arab and Muslim lives. That's why the UAE and Bahrain is, my goodness, the Crown Prince of Bahrain demonstrated moral clarity with regards to Hamas, vastly exceeding that which is coming out of America's most elite academic institutions. Gosh, what a strange day we live in.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Yaakov Menken. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, from a viral chatbot to a worldwide AI debate. 1 year after its release, ChatGPT is still alive and thriving. We look back at its impact on the tech landscape.
Right now, all over the country, kids at Shriners Hospitals for Children are able to go home and be with their families for the holidays. And it's only possible because of the monthly support of people just like you.
Thanks to a generous donor, every dollar you give can help twice as many kids like me and have double the impact.
With your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you, and a reminder of the care you'll be providing so kids can be with their families.
Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams.
It only takes a moment to call the number on your screen, or you can visit loveshriners.org right now on your phone or computer.
Thanks to a generous donor, your gift will go twice as far and help more kids like me.
Because every child just wants to be home for the holidays, and your gift makes that possible.
Your call is the best gift of all.
Your gift will be my favorite Christmas present this year.
Thank you for giving.
Please call the number on your screen or go online right now with your monthly gift.
And when you do, your gift will have 2 times the impact.
Attention, everyone on Medicare. The Medicare annual enrollment period is now open. This is the only time of year when everyone on Medicare can call to enroll in a 2024 plan. Everyone on Medicare is encouraged to call even if you called last year. The phone lines are now open.
Just call 800-410-1138.
The Medicare annual enrollment period runs for a limited number of weeks. The phone lines may get busy. Licensed insurance agents are standing by to take your call. 2024 plans are now available for enrollment. Just call the number on your screen and get a free, no-obligation Medicare review. This is a free call and there is no obligation to enroll. That's right, you can call the number on your screen and you don't have to enroll in a plan. Remember, the Medicare annual enrollment period is now open. There is no obligation to enroll. The call and Medicare review are free.
Just call 800-410-1138. That's 800-410-1138.
Former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor passed away today at the age of 93. She made history as the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court. President Ronald Reagan nominated her in 1981.
Throughout her almost 25-year tenure, O'Connor authored over 670 opinions, including more than 300 majority opinions. She was known as a pivotal vote in many 5-4 decisions, earning her the reputation as a swing vote, although she disliked the label.
Chief Justice John Roberts praised O'Connor's trailblazing role, undaunted determination, and engaging candor. He described her as a beloved colleague and a defender of the rule of law. And COVID vaccine controversy. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is suing drug maker Pfizer. He accuses the company of misrepresenting the efficacy of its COVID-19 vaccine. Paxton says it was misleading for Pfizer to claim its vaccine was 95% effective based on relative risk reduction. The Attorney General says the claim came from only 2 months of clinical trial data. He says the absolute risk reduction showed the vaccine was just 0.85% effective. The Attorney General also says the pandemic worsened after people started taking the vaccine. Paxton says Pfizer censored people who threatened to spread what he calls the truth to help the vaccine be adopted. The lawsuit seeks to stop Pfizer from making alleged false claims and silencing, quote, truthful speech about its vaccine. Pfizer responded, saying the information it gave about the vaccine was accurate and science-based.
Dr. Anthony Fauci is set to appear before the House Select Committee investigating the pandemic. Fauci, who was often considered the face of America's public health response during COVID-19, will participate in a 7-hour interview January 8th and 9th. A public hearing will be set at a later date. Republicans have long sought Fauci's testimony over his handling of the pandemic. The committee is investigating the origins of COVID-19, the lockdowns and mask mandates, scientific censorship, and more. Last year, Fauci stepped down as President Biden's top medical advisor and the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
And in a case that alleges weaponization of the government, pro-life organizations Obria Group and Obria Medical Group's Pacific Northwest are suing the Attorney General of Washington State over what they say is an unconstitutional and unlawful investigation into the organization's privileged records and materials. They say they've been singled out because of their views. Earlier, we spoke with Obria Pacific Northwest's Executive Director, River Sussman, and Alliance Defending Freedom's Senior Counsel, Tim Garrison, to learn more. River, Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. River, I'd like to start with you. What compelled your organization to take legal action against the Attorney General's office? What specific events transpired to make that happen?
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. The Attorney General filed or delivered a civil investigative demand a year and a half ago, which required over 1,500 pages of documentation of personal and private information, board members, like meeting notes, information about employees, information about clients. It was beyond the reach. And not only that, it was for 13 years, going back to 2010, which is well beyond the statute of limitations in Washington, which is 4 years. We've been in existence for since 1984, serving the community free of charge with millions of dollars of services and supplies, materials, and such. And they have nothing that they're basing this on. There's been no complaint. There's no evidence for this. It's overreach. It's abuse in the office.
And River, how has that impacted your team's ability to do their business?
Well, it takes a lot of time to come up with that much documentation, and it's also disturbing to feel attacked by the administration of the state that you live in. So, I mean, we continue to do what we do, and yet it's a wet blanket. It takes a lot of time and effort.
And Tim, you're representing the clients in this case, and what specific constitutional rights do you believe that have been violated in this case?
Sure, thank you. We believe that this civil investigative demand, and because of its breadth and depth, and as River mentioned, the length for which this investigation goes back to, it violates several constitutional principles. They're targeting the Obria Group and Obria Pacific Northwest because of their free speech and their speech concerning their pro-life views. That targeting is unconstitutional. It also comes after their associations because they're asking for information about people that they contract with, their volunteers, their donors. It is a violation of their Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, and it's a violation of the 14th Amendment. In that it deprives them of the equal protection of the law.
And could you elaborate on the evidence or lack thereof provided by the Attorney General's office in their pursuit of this information?
So far as we know, there is no basis for this investigation. We've been apprised of no complaint that's been filed against Obria. We're aware of no factual basis to initiate this investigation. What we do know is that Attorney General Bob Ferguson has a long and well-documented history of hostility toward the pregnancy help movement. And we think that's being manifested in these demands.
And so, turning back to you, River, what do you hope to achieve with this lawsuit?
Thank you, Stephanie. The men and women of Washington State, like the entire country, deserve to have information and services available to them at will. What they're doing here is a violation of the ability to have services available. These are inalienable rights to get information about the choices that you make. What do we want to do? We would like to set a precedent for don't cross this line. We have the right to be here. We have the right to do the services that we have. We have the right to free speech. We have the right to our faith-based pro-life position. And
thank you so much. And Tim, I'd just like to finish with you. Could you explain a bit more about the basis of the claim that your clients are being unfairly targeted due to their pro-life stance?
Well, it's because there's no other conceivable basis to initiate this investigation. The services that Obria provides are provided at no cost to their clients. We're aware of no complaints that have been lodged against this organization. And on the other side, we have a public official in Bob Ferguson, again, who has expressed time and again his hostility towards pro-life organizations such as Obria. And so in the absence of any explanation for him initiating this investigation, we look to the obvious, and that's his hostility towards what we're doing.
Tim Garrison and River Sussman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Now for some business headlines. U.S. chipmaker Broadcom is set to lay off about 1,300 employees in California who used to work for cloud computing firm VMware. That's according to a Bloomberg report. The move follows Broadcom's November takeover of VMware after receiving regulatory approval from China. Beijing had slowed down antitrust reviews of other proposed deals by U.S. companies. The recent approval was seen as signaling a thaw in U.S.-China relations. Insider also reported Broadcom will review strategic options for two business units of VMware. Another company downsizing, VF Corp, the owner of Vans. The company has announced layoffs around 500 employees as part of a global restructuring plan. The company has been facing challenges in the tough U.S. retail market, with customers cutting back on non-essential spending. Sales at the Vans brand have been declining, and the new CEO doesn't expect a turnaround this year. Shares of VF have dropped 40% this year.
More and more companies are telling customers not to bother returning items. They often cost more to ship back than they're worth. This year, 59% of retailers adopted the returnless or keep it policies. Last year, 26% of companies had such policies. The typical return costs retailers about $30.
U.S. shoppers are expected to return over $170 billion worth of holiday purchases this year. That's 28% more than last year, according to a firm that helps retailers manage returns.
Returns drain profits because they must be transported, stored, and sorted and resold, often at a discount or disposed of at a loss.
Some stores are changing return policies to offering store credit, charging for some returns, and encouraging shoppers to bring online purchases back to physical stores.
OpenAI's ChatGPT became the fastest growing software application in the world within 6 months of its debut.
1 year on, it has sparked the launch of rival chatbots, raised questions about the role of generative AI in society, and disrupted several industries.
OpenAI's viral chatbot ChatGPT launched on November 30th, 2022. In the past year, its uncannily human-like responses have taken the world by storm. While it has answered millions of user prompts, its growing influence has also sparked serious inquiries into and movements against the role of AI in society. It's a conversation that also played out in a tumultuous boardroom battle that saw the sudden ouster and return of CEO Sam Altman. Here's a look at the impact ChatGPT has had on the technology sector. ChatGPT became the fastest-growing software application in the world within 6 months of its debut, sparking the launch of rival chatbots and a bevy of startups. Its competitors include Bard, Anthropic's Claude, Character AI, and Microsoft's Copilot, which have seen a surge in users. But ChatGPT commands the lion's share of the market. ChatGPT's launch sparked massive investments from top tech players. Microsoft and Alphabet have invested billions to improve their cloud computing capabilities and take on more AI workloads as businesses embrace such tools. Chipmaker NVIDIA became the first and only chip company to join the $1 trillion valuation club. It's widely considered to be the biggest winner of the AI boom, due to its position as the key supplier of the chips used to power ChatGPT and other generative AI applications. With these applications running mostly on the cloud, vendors of cloud computing services like Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet have also seen their shares surge. OpenAI and its backer Microsoft have been slapped with several copyright lawsuits. Authors including John Grisham, George R.R. Martin, and Jonathan Franzen are suing over the alleged misuse of their work to train AI systems. The companies have denied the allegations.
4 environmental groups are suing the National Park Service to stop it from planting trees. They disagree with the Park Service about how to maintain the forests at Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks in California. The lawsuit started in September. 3 groups originally aimed to stop the Park Service from cutting trees. Park officials wanted to cut and burn trees to reduce fuel for future fires. The John Muir Project joined the lawsuit earlier this month and amended it to try to stop park rangers from planting new trees in the same areas. The groups say sequoia groves need high-intensity fires to reproduce. They allege interfering with the ecosystem violates the 1964 Wilderness Act. The Park Service says it's concerned that wildfires in 2020 and 2021 killed too many trees for the forests to be able to regenerate on their own. And the astronauts heading to orbit around the moon in 2024 have added their signatures to their rocket hardware. The 4 visited Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama this week.
There they signed the Orion stage adapter, the topmost portion of the rocket that will launch them into space during the Artemis II mission. The adapter is 5 feet tall and weighs 1,800 pounds.
During the mission, it also prevents gases created during launch from entering the spacecraft. Plenty of lottery winners collect money, but now a few losers are cashing in. The Iowa Lottery says that due to a mistake after Monday's Powerball drawing, staff entered some numbers into the state gaming system incorrectly. The Lotto says people who collected money before it corrected the error can keep it. But the lucky losers aren't becoming millionaires. The Lotto says the prizes range from $4 to $200. And coming up, a prestigious university allegedly doing the Chinese Communist Party's bidding. Revealing testimony on Capitol Hill highlights the dangers of the CCP to American security and freedom.
And a North Korean trade town, now the epicenter of the country's growing ties with Russia. And it's all about weapons trade. More soon when we return.
Beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shen-Yun.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call
800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now.
800-494-1562.
Freedom is not free, and neither is the truth. In order to bring you the facts, our reporters are out there on the front lines getting the true story. Some of them served 10 years of prison in China. We've been censored on social media. Our Hong Kong printing offices were set on fire, and we've been repeatedly attacked by the Chinese Communist Party. But no matter what, we believe that you deserve the truth, and so we'll continue to bring the truth to light. Head on over to getepic.com and try honest journalism that is based in truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Do you feel the bills getting higher and higher every time you check out at the supermarket? Do you feel your monthly discretionary money has decreased, although your income increases yearly? Inflation is eating away at your wealth. Digital wallets and central bank digital currencies are destroying financial privatization. Only gold and silver are constitutional forms of money. Our privacy was to be protected against unlawful search and seizure. Midas Gold Group will help you take control of your finances and protect your wealth and your privacy. Pulling money out of the corrupt banking and investment system is a way to privatize your finances as the elite push us towards digital wallets and central bank digital currency. Protect your wealth with real money. Deal with the best. Midas Gold Group, a proud America First company. MidasGoldGroup.com.
I'm Kelly Wright in New York City, and we are NTD News.
The rising threat of the Chinese Communist Party. Lawmakers heard new testimony on Capitol Hill about U.S. interests under attack.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has the highlights.
The Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party chairman Mike Gallagher warned about TikTok becoming a primary news source for younger generations, with their worldviews potentially being shaped by the CCP.
TikTok is perhaps the largest malign influence operation ever conducted. Allowing a CCP-controlled entity to become the dominant media platform, the dominant news platform in America, would be a huge mistake, in my opinion. It would be as if in 1962, at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, we allowed Pravda and the KGB to purchase the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, and NBC, and that probably understates the scope of the problem.
Gallagher says there's clear evidence that parent company ByteDance has done the Communist Party's bidding. He discussed how the CCP forced ByteDance to shut down its news platform because it went against its core socialist values.
And in a groveling self-criticism, the founder of ByteDance apologized for failing to respect socialist core values and deviating from public opinion guidance and failing to realize that socialist core values are the prerequisite to technology. Following this, ByteDance announced a new strategy to hire 4,000 extra censors and integrate socialist core values into its technology.
Representative Seth Moulton also touched on the online threat of the CCP.
But today, China is attacking our businesses, our citizens, our kids through the internet every single day.
Former State Department official Miles Yu says the CCP is strongly influencing Chinese citizens abroad through buying major media outlets.
Hundreds of TV stations, newspapers, magazines overseas, outside of China, almost all of them are now bought by the Chinese Communist Party. There's a recent study indicated that the only network that is not really controlled by the Chinese Communist Party is the Falun Gong related media outlets.
Congresswoman Michelle Steele highlighted the problem with universities taking CCP money.
UC Berkeley received $220 million from CCP, never reported.
Miles Yu also touched on what he views as the corrupt relationship of prestigious universities like Harvard with the CCP.
They conduct a survey on behalf of the Chinese government to prove that 93% of Chinese people support the Chinese Communist Party. So use Harvard's prestige to support the Chinese propaganda.
Yu says Harvard didn't even do their own research, instead subcontracting a Chinese company in Beijing to do it. Yu discusses what the CCP most fears about America.
It doesn't matter which party is in charge. Democrats or Republican. It's not a policy per se. It's the very existence of the United States that could inspire Chinese people. That's what they fear about most.
Testimony was also heard on the CCP's infiltration of sensitive infrastructure.
For all the ports, same thing too. They're controlling our cranes and they're controlling data tracking systems.
While Congressman Gallagher is calling on the Biden administration to investigate the Chinese drone company Autel Robotics, Gallagher says Autel is openly affiliated with the People's Liberation Army. The congressman says law enforcement and state and local governments are purchasing and operating Autel drones, potentially exposing sensitive data across the country. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And heading to the Asia Pacific, we have some short headlines from Taiwan and other regions. Tensions in the South China Sea. The Philippines opened a new Coast Guard monitoring base today on an island in the South China Sea.
The country will use the new base to watch Chinese vessels in the contested waters. The two-story center will have radar, ship tracking, and other monitoring equipment.
Face-offs between Chinese and Philippine ships have intensified this year. A Philippine official said at the opening ceremony that the actions of Chinese ships are, quote, pure bullying.
The Philippines decided this year to allow an expansion of the U.S. military presence. It also recently launched joint sea and air patrols with the U.S. and Australia.
China and Vietnam considering a boost to their railway network. The line would cross Vietnam's rare earths heartland and reach the country's top port in the north.
The two communist regimes are working on a possible significant upgrade of their rail links. Vietnam already has rail connections to China, but the system is old with limited capacity on the Vietnam side.
Updating the rail links would further boost Vietnam's strategic role in global supply chains. Major powers, including the United States, are vying to gain influence there.
China is by far the world's biggest refiner of rare earths. Vietnam is trying to build its own industry in what is seen as a possible challenge to China's dominance.
The Chinese regime is sponsoring cheap trips to China for hundreds of Taiwanese politicians ahead of the key elections there. That's according to an exclusive report from Reuters.
Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen and other officials have warned about election interference from Beijing. China reportedly attempts to sway voters toward candidates seeking closer ties with the regime.
Taiwanese law forbids election campaigns from receiving funds from external hostile forces such as China. Prosecutors this week are investigating 22 people in connection with the interference. A North Korean trade town now emerging as a focal point for the isolated country's connection with the outside world. But shipments leaving the area aren't carrying ordinary goods. Instead, they transport weapons.
What's really happening in Pyongyang's special economic zone? Here's more.
This is the Rason Special Economic Zone, once a North Korean experiment in limited capitalism that now appears to be the epicenter of the isolated country's growing ties with Russia. That's according to regional experts who say it includes possible shipments of arms for the war in Ukraine. Rason was established in the 1990s on the border with China and Russia. It was a dream destination for many North Koreans, with its booming markets selling imported goods.
There were many electric bikes imported from China that couldn't be seen in other areas, and motorbikes and cars.
Officials from Seoul have told reporters that an estimated 2,000 containers suspected of carrying artillery shells have been sent from Rason's port, though the Kremlin has denied such shipments. Satellite images also suggest a spike in trade over the past year via the rail line to Russia, seen here opening in 2011. Moscow and Pyongyang have been forging tighter ties in the face of what they see as a hostile US-led Western camp. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met with Russia's Vladimir Putin in September in eastern Russia, Kim's first known overseas trip since 2019. China, with its larger economy and deeper history with North Korea, may seem the more obvious candidate to drive a recovery in Rason.
Coming up in sports memorabilia news, the bidding for a Babe Ruth rookie card could set a new record. NTD's Dave Martin will join us in the studio to discuss.
And 3 days of water shows performed by a young humpback whale known as Smiley. We have footage of the unique dance coming up on NTD News Today.
To a child, this is what conflict looks like. Children in Ukraine are caught in the crossfire of war, forced to flee their homes.
A steady stream of refugees has been coming across all day. It's bitterly cold.
Lacking clean water and sanitation, exposed to injury, hunger.
Exhausted and shell-shocked from what they've been through.
Every dollar you give can help bring a meal, a blanket, or simply hope to a child living in conflict. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month. That's just 33 cents a day. We cannot forget the children in places like Syria, born in refugee camps, playing in refugee camps, thinking of the camps as home. Please, call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month. Your gift can help children like Ara in Afghanistan, where nearly 20 years of conflict have forced the people into extreme poverty. Weakened and unable to hold herself up, Ara was brought to a Save the Children center where she was diagnosed and treated for severe malnutrition. Every dollar helps. Please, call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month, just 33 cents a day. And thanks to special government grants that are available now, every dollar you give can multiply up to 10 times the impact. And when you use your credit card, you'll receive this special Save the Children tote bag to show you won't forget the children who are living their lives in conflict. Every war is a war against children. Please, give now.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Anyone who's ever sold a home can tell you it is really hard. That's why who you work with matters. Together with Homelight, we've helped thousands of people sell faster and for the best price.
Welcome back. And now for your sports news. We welcome NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, a 100-year-old Babe Ruth baseball card is at auction right now, and it's at more than $5 million. The bidding is still going on. What makes a card like this so valuable?
Well, I mean, simply put, supply and demand. Now, this is a 1914 card of Ruth when he was still in the minor leagues with Baltimore at the time. Now, he was promoted to the big leagues later that season, so it's technically his rookie card. Those are always the most valuable. And as you can see on the video here, considering it's over 100 years old, it's actually in pretty decent shape.
Yeah.
Now, Ruth, I mean, he died like 75 years ago. He was so popular, though. I mean, his name still lives on. He was like the Michael Jordan of his generation. Immensely famous, immensely successful, and baseball was America's favorite pastime. You know, plus there's only 10 of these cards known to still be in existence, so the opportunity to get one is remote. I mean, it's like buying a Picasso or something.
Yeah, wow. Incredible. Now, switching gears to college football, this is the final weekend of the regular season, and right now there are 4 undefeated teams left for the 4 playoff spots. Does it seem like the playoff committee should have a fairly simple choice?
I mean, if all 4 win, I would think it would be pretty straightforward, but that is not going to be easy. All 4 of them are in conference championship games against tough opponents. You know, Georgia and Washington, they play 1-loss teams, Alabama and Oregon, who would probably take their spots if they pulled the upset. And it actually hardly be an upset. Oregon is actually favored to win the game. Florida State, nobody knows really what to expect with them without their star quarterback. Louisville is tough to beat either way. I mean, they're 10-2. Michigan is prohibitive favorites over Iowa. But what would be a nightmare for the committee is if all 4 of these undefeated teams lost. Texas, which has 1 loss, wins. Then you'd have no undefeateds, 8 one-loss teams for 4 playoff spots. I mean, how could you fairly possibly decide that? Now, I'll grant it's not likely, but it would be further proof that we needed a new system with automatic bids, which we'll finally get next season.
All right, David, staying in college football, Nebraska head coach Matt Rule caused a bit of a stir this week when he said getting a good quarterback in the transfer portal costs $1.5 to $2 million. Do you see this as a problem for the NCAA?
No, I mean, I'm sure the coaches view it as a problem because it's part of the recruiting process they're no longer in control of. Now, these players aren't getting paid by the schools, but now they can sell their name, image, and likeness, otherwise known as NIL, And that's a free economy, you know, and most of these organizations or companies that are paying them are actually pools of alumni pooling their money together to try to recruit these players to their alma maters. Now that, coupled with the NCAA's new transfer rules where players no longer have to sit out a season after transferring, it's really changed the landscape. Essentially, it's created like a free agency of sorts. So I think what he said was some sticker shock because these numbers really aren't publicly available like they will be in the pros when they go there.
All right, great. Thank you very much. As always, Dave.
Thanks, guys.
Dave.
Now, a fantastic display of nearly 1,000 gingerbread buildings. Let's talk about that. This Christmas season, a Guinness World Record holder pays tribute to the Big Apple with a remarkable creation. Take a look. Today we take you to Manhattan's Chelsea Market, where artist and creator Jon Lovitch has been putting the finishing touches on his gingerbread village display. Sweets and candies embellish the gingerbread, making up the bustling boroughs of New York City. This Christmas, Jon the Gingerbread Man Lovitch is showcasing some 800 handmade and home-baked houses in his gingerbread village.
This is year number 30 that we've actually been doing this. We started in 1994, and this is the 30th season. It's just been one continuous house party at Christmas, I guess.
The former executive chef is the Guinness World Record holder for the largest gingerbread village. For him, preparing for the holidays is a year-round endeavor.
Basically, this is kind of the culmination of it you see behind me, and then kind of what's next is getting started for next year. So got probably a few more hours of work to do on this one, and then kind of once that's done here in the next few weeks, somewhere between now and the winter solstice, I'll literally start mixing icing and start making things for the next season. So it's a process that never actually truly ends.
Lovitch works from home out of his kitchen in Queens, New York. At the height of summer, he bakes and decorates the gingerbread houses, which he stores in his basement, easily going through 4,000 pounds of candy, 6,000 egg whites, and 1,000 pounds of gingerbread. This holiday season, Lovitch has exhibits in Houston, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and here in New York City. Transporting and rebuilding his village at each location is not an easy task.
So it creates obviously a level of physical exhaustion, and obviously what it does to your body in general. Just the stress of it, obviously trying to get all of them set up and trying to make sure all the details are just perfect.
But despite the challenges, Lovitch says he will try to keep the Christmas spirit alive.
I did try to add in a little bit of Chelsea within the exhibit. Chelsea obviously is a very historic part of New York City. There's very little new construction in Chelsea. So much of it harkens back to the early 20th century and a lot of it the 19th century even.
Lovitch says Chelsea Market holds special meaning for him.
My wife and I had our third date right here in this building, and third dates can be pretty big deal. That's kind of when you decide, is this going to go somewhere or not? And so this location is near and dear to my heart for that reason, my wife and kid and that sort of thing. So definitely a romantic notion in my head of having Gingerbread Lane at a place so important to my wife and I. So hopefully we can make some new magic with Gingerbread Lane here at Chelsea Market this year.
Gingerbread Lane is open to the public until January 7th, when Lovitch will dismantle the display and give away the gingerbread houses for free. Stephanie Cox, NTD News, New York. Animals at the London Zoo also had a head start to Christmas, getting to open their advent calendars earlier this year. Two Sumatran tiger cubs made a dash for their calendar along a cinnamon and nutmeg-scented trail and toppled their tower of red boxes.
Squirrel monkeys, meanwhile, showed off their balancing skills as they fished their holiday treats out of festive pouches.
The meerkats had to do some work to get their favorite snacks, crickets, out of 25 drawers in a Christmas tree-shaped calendar.
London Zoo offers a range of Christmas events, including crafts, marshmallow toasting, and seasonal-themed animal talks. The special festive events run until January 7th.
And an underwater holiday celebration in Germany. At Sea Life in Munich, even sharks get treats for Christmas.
Visitors will witness a unique sight as divers dressed as St. Nicholas and his helper feed bananas to fish.
The aquarium holds over 100,000 gallons of water and is about 16 feet deep, creating the perfect backdrop for this underwater extravaganza.
Sea Life is the world's largest aquarium chain with over 50 locations and more than 23 million visitors a year.
Over to Ireland, trays of bright red poinsettia plants are ready for a blooming Christmas.
At this wholesale plant nursery in Dublin, 8 acres of the seasonal blooms have been growing for 6 months. These poinsettias are often bought to decorate homes at Christmas.
The nursery said they usually grow about 2 million plants a year and they empty out in about 2 weeks.
The poinsettia's distinctive red leaves have made it a Christmas staple in its native Mexico and abroad.
And check this out, an Albert Einstein signed program from 1946 sold at an auction for $5,000. The program was from Einstein's visit to Lincoln University, a historically black college and university in Pennsylvania. The German scientist was invited by the university's president to receive an honorary degree. According to auctioneers, the program was bought by an American collector. Imagine seeing a humpback whale jumping out of the water from downtown. That's exactly what happened when a young calf decided to show off near Seattle. The big little guy has been swimming around Elliott Bay, where Seattle is located. Local whale watching groups first spotted him 3 days ago. They even identified his mother, a whale that they call Smiley. It's not unusual for humpbacks to visit the waters off Seattle as they migrate, but it's unknown why this whale likes the bay so much. And pomegranates are now making their season debut. It's not just their beautiful, bright color. They're also rich in flavor and nutrients.
How are they good for your health? Here's Gina Marie with Strong Mind and Body.
Pomegranate fruit is making an appearance in markets throughout the holidays. It's certainly worth picking some up for their significant health benefits. Underneath their leathery skin, pomegranates are filled with hundreds of edible red seed pods. They are tart, sweet, juicy, and crunchy. They've been cultivated for centuries throughout the world and used to prevent and treat many diseases and ailments. Numerous cultures have idolized them for their spiritual and religious significance. The main health benefit of pomegranates is their high concentration of unique antioxidants. The seeds are also high in vitamins B and C, folic acid, potassium, and iron. Let's take a deeper look at their health benefits, starting with the heart. Pomegranate juice can benefit the heart due to its high antioxidant content. This is helpful for hypertension and inflammation. Next, it benefits your kidneys. Pomegranate extract can inhibit the mechanism associated with stone formation in people with recurring kidney stones. This is due to the potassium and antioxidants in the juice. Next, it can benefit your skin. In Ayurvedic medicine, pomegranate extracts and tinctures have been used to treat many skin problems. This includes pimples, acne, wounds, and sores. Another benefit is for people with diabetes. A study looked at the effects of fresh pomegranate juice on those with pre-diabetes. They found that the fresh juice increased insulin levels and reduced insulin resistance. Next, let's look at fertility. According to researchers, pomegranate juice can boost testosterone levels. This may have therapeutic use for fertility issues in men with low testosterone levels. Let's close with a few tips. Raw seeds have the highest vitamin C concentration. Drink the juice in the morning on an empty stomach for maximum nutrient absorption. Sprinkle pomegranate seeds on salads or yogurt with granola. Make a smoothie with pomegranate juice, bananas, and yogurt. Mix pomegranate juice, rice vinegar, oil, garlic, and honey to make a salad dressing.
Subway is celebrating the upcoming National Cookie Day in a big way. Here's a sneak peek of its new foot-long cookie. On Monday, December 4th, fans can get a free foot-long chocolate chip cookie with the purchase of a foot-long sub. The cookie giveaway will be available at select Subway locations in Chicago, Dallas, Miami, and New York City. But you better get there early. Subway did a limited run of foot-long cookies last year in Miami on Cookie Day, and they were snapped up in less than 2 hours. The chain says it sells more freshly baked cookies than any other restaurant company in the U.S. That's all for today's news.
Thank you for tuning in.
Feel free to reach out to us with any news tips or feedback at news.today@ntd.com.
And we'll be back with more stories on Monday.